X Substack, you'll see one of the covers or one of the promotional posters, which is Psychic Agent, the GATE program, with a young kid. And it's unnerving in a lot of ways because I went through the public system and got tested and IQ tested at a very young age. They gave me an IQ test when I was in elementary school, like before I went to seventh grade. And it kind of overlaps with some of the stuff here. I don't remember some of the stuff that's in this film that other people experienced. But when I saw this, I was like, oh, I saw Candace Owens talking about this whole thing about GATE program or special kids. And she was talking about Charlie. She shows up in this film. So Ryder was keyed into that in this film. There's a lot of research. This will be our 4th episode. We did another episode on another documentary I recommend, Clockwork Shining, Kubrick's Odyssey 3. Check that out. And then also we covered, I think, had to have been 2 or 3 years ago, one I titled Global Mind Control, Remote Assassins, and MK Ultra. And then I was a guest on his show talking about catchers in the ride, not catcher, but catchers, Hinckley and Chapman. And then after I interviewed him on that, I interviewed Hinckley, John Hinckley, about his book. And his story in itself is really interesting. Kind of ties into this. He had some kind of weird persuasion thing and a weird doctor around it. His name was Hopper, and there were lawsuits and stuff like that around that. But kind of loosely ties into the same theme of kind of dark persuasion and influence. But it goes back into a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of great visuals and a lot of first-person interviews on this. But he can talk more about that. So Ryder Lee, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me on, William. Really appreciate it. Glad to be back and glad to talk about this movie. It took me a long time to put it all together, as you know, and how putting movies together, how much time and effort and resources it takes to really put something together like this. But I'm really proud of it, and hope people go and check it out on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, I mean, you should be. It's a great documentary, a real documentary. He actually went out and talked to a lot of people first person, right? Like you're in their homes or somebody was. Is that you holding the camera?
Yep, that's me in their homes, yes.
So can you talk about the research and kind of the steps you took to aggregate all that information that went into Psychic Agent?
Well, it was really difficult. A lot of documents. It's a very document-heavy movie, and I think people that appreciate documents and showing proof and evidence of things will really appreciate this movie. And how it really began was going through a lot of the MK Ultra sub-projects and discovering that, several of the sub-projects were dedicated to unlocking and study of ESP and psychic abilities. MK Ultra Subproject 83 is about ESP testing and psychic abilities. Subproject 136 is also about psychic abilities and ESP testing. And specifically, we show in the movie, in that document, that it talks about psychic testing on children. MK Ultra Subproject 102 is a giant summer camp where the CIA was collecting data on, I think, around 462 children. We show in an old NBC broadcast that was talking about all the CIA's interest in children. That's how we opened the entire trailer. Now, after that, I then started reaching out to several of the remote viewers that were officially in the government remote viewing unit, the Stargate Project, which it wasn't always called the Stargate Project. It went through many different names and many different iterations, and it's really explained within the movie. And I thought that was really important for me to do because there's never been, to my knowledge, a thorough history of the government's interest in psychic abilities and where the research started and how it developed into a military three-letter organization unit. Now, there has been some confusion on some of these things, and there's 3 different programs that we really focus on in the entire movie, which is the Stargate unit, which Dale Graff was the operations manager. The Stargate program was the government's remote viewing unit that would spy on foreign assets and foreign targets to figure out what was going on during the Cold War. He was the operations manager for that unit. He was the one that coined the term Stargate. Then we have the Monroe Institute Gateway Experience, which is a completely different program, but is connected in a few ways back to the Stargate unit. We show a document in the movie that shows that Army intelligence sent some of their Army personnel to the Monroe Institute to study under Robert Monroe. And reportedly, talking with the people that are in the movie from the Stargate unit, they also had the Monroe Institute Gateway tapes. They had access to those at the unit in Fort Meade. And the other thing that we talk about is the public school GATE programs. See, there's GATE in every single one of these things. So, people could possibly get confused, but it is very distinctive, the things that we're talking about within the movie. They're separate things, but are somehow related. But there was only less than 20 people that was ever in the DIA's Army Intelligence Unit at Fort Meade. So it's just important. And we show that document also in the movie, where you see all the people that were verified that was in the Stargate Remote Viewing Unit. In no way, shape, or form did we ever even mention or even say or even allude to the fact that DIA Army Intelligence Stargate Remote Viewing Unit was testing on children. They were not. That is, anybody that believes that is wrong, and we don't even mention that in the movie. So I just think that that's important to bring up right off the bat. That GATE program in public school is a completely different program than the Stargate Remote Viewing Unit. But, people get confused, William. They'll throw things together that don't belong, and they'll watch it, and then they'll think that this is all one big, they'll try to meld everything together when it's not meant to be melded together.
Right, but you're right. It is kind of confusing. They like that word gate, and the guy mentioned graph, I think it was, that he got the idea driving home at night and the fog separated and he saw this kind of portal to the stars or whatever. And that's how he got the concept of Stargate. That is just the part of the story that's really fascinating in and of itself, is this, how they got these guys together. And it's almost like what the government does is they figure out stuff and then they keep quiet about it. So these guys kept quiet about it for whatever reason for a long time. And then the whole thing is like, it never really worked. And then you see these percentages like, yeah, we knew a lot of stuff. Like they're personally saying they had a lot of successes, right?
Well, and that's also verified within the documents as well. I mean, you can look at some of those documents and see that they were very on target, that they were hitting at around 60. The lowest is around 60% on any given target, which 60% of the time works every time. That's Anchorman reference, but 60% of the time is pretty good, and at the highest is around 75% of the time, which I also believe is really good. So the CIA being transferred back to the CIA in 1995, and then the head of the CIA coming out and saying that the unit never worked, that they never really accomplished anything, is completely false. It's completely wrong. I mean, you just look through the documents and you know that that's wrong. I mean, we have Angela Ford within the documentary saying that they found missing, she personally found kidnapped people in Lebanon, hostages in Lebanon, and she also found a gentleman named Charles Fort in Wyoming, when some of the other remote viewers did not, some of the other military remote viewers did not find him. They thought that he was in Florida, and I believe one in Texas or in another place. But that document was actually really difficult to find, where she was explaining where she drew the Indian burial ground, and she said that it's 100% in Wyoming. I had to go through a lot of trouble and time and effort to even find that document put inside of the movie, but she was correct, and she actually got awarded for that, and she got special awards along with Lynn Buchanan. He also got awards as well for his work in the Stargate Remote Viewing Unit. So why would they be giving awards to people for finding out the information that nobody knows, or finding hostages, or finding runaway drug mules for the TSA and customs agents if it didn't work.
So the Stargate project, or it was kind of under the Defense Intelligence, but other people were using it. So different government agents would, use kind of standard intel stuff, but at certain times they would come down to them and see if they could help. Is that right?
That's right. The CIA, Naval Intelligence, NSA, pretty much everybody, and I talk about it in the movie. I'm like, pretty much every three-letter organization is in some way tasking the DIA Army Intelligence Unit to do psychic spying for them. And it would come down to things that they couldn't find through regular, telemetry and satellite data and stuff like that. It was, then they would come. They were kind of like a last resort type of thing. And we talk about that, which is kind of not fair, because if they're really good, then they probably shouldn't be a last resort. They should probably, at least be the second thing that you contact when the first one doesn't work out. But they tended to be some of the last on the list to contact, and they turned out to be pretty dang accurate. But when they found that missing airplane, the missing Russian airplane in Africa, Jimmy Carter actually brought that to the attention of a lot of people in 1995 and before that. But the most popular one is in 1995, where he was asked in an interview if did anything strange or inexplicable happen during your time as president. And he said, yes, a lady was contacted from California. The head of the CIA contacted, he said, a medium from California, but he was wrong. It wasn't a medium, and it wasn't from California. It was actually from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio, and that was Del Graf's small remote viewing Air Force unit by a lady named Rosemary Smith. So he had part of it right, but the other parts weren't correct. But I didn't include that into the movie because it's been done to death. The people that know about the Jimmy Carter thing know about the Jimmy Carter thing. I've brought it up several times on my show. I have a viral reel on it. I had one on
What's
TikTok.
the name of your podcast?
Raised by Giants.
Raised by Giants. So people can check out more of that. I think it's interesting because these are political events, right? This is kind of the Cold War's ending, 79, and they're always trying to find down equipment and intel and info. And so this is happening in Africa, where this plane disappears. And you have the interesting thing is these guys kept it seems like if these documents are authentic, they kept the documented thing of the remote viewing, right? Can you kind of do like ABCs of remote viewing for people who may not understand what they do in the process to kind of induce this ESP? It's kind of like an ESP, right? Didn't they admit that in the film, your interviewers?
Yeah, there's not too much difference between remote viewing and ESP. Remote viewing is just a term that was coined by Russell Targ and Hal Puthoff at SRI in the early 70s, whenever they took a trip to China, and China was experimenting on children for ESP abilities, and they took a trip to China, and that's where they discovered, reportedly, that's what people say happened. But we do know that they did take a trip to China. But what's sad is they went to China and a kid called it remote viewing, and then SRI took that term and then, named it remote viewing. But we don't really know. But we do know that SRI and Russell Targ and Hal Puthoff were responsible for naming it remote viewing. Now, how it came about, that's another. But people had different names for it since the beginning. There were mystics, there were clairvoyants. It's gone under many different names throughout history, but remote viewing is like the standard term, because they had to come up with a new term in order to make this unit a viable unit in order to get funding. So they had to put it in some sort of military way, in like a military format, so that people could easily understand. Because if you just came out and started calling, hey, we got a clairvoyant unit over there, you know what I mean? People are going to be like, what? Why do you have a clairvoyant unit? But essentially what it is, and it's been described as opening like an aperture of your mind. Del Graff kind of talks about this in the movie, or you're going through a gate in your mind, and that's kind of one of the reasons why he wanted to name it. It eventually landed on Stargate in the early 90s. And it's a very complicated process. It's not super easy like a lot of people believe that it is. Like, you'll see people online and they'll be like, oh yeah, I just looked at a picture and I was able to remote view it. You know what I mean? I wanted to remote view Egypt, so I just sat down and remote viewed Egypt. You know, that's not really how it works. You're supposed to be blind to the target. So there's a couple of different ways to do it. Angela Ford talks about the Silva mind control book in the movie, and she says that is a really, I haven't read the book, but she just recommends it, that it's very similar to extended remote viewing, which is ERV. But there's other different ways of remote viewing as well. And one of the ones that she did was written remote viewing, which is where you essentially draw the scene, like we showed in the movie when she found Charles Fort. She had the background of the Indian burial ground and basically described where he was located. And then there's a coordinate remote viewing, where a person is given a set of coordinates, but they're not necessarily real coordinates. The coordinate doesn't actually pertain to the site that you're remote viewing. The person that gives the coordinate is actually imbuing their, it's really they're like imprinting onto the coordinate what it is that the remote viewer is like the location that they're supposed to be viewing. That's why it's like, so it's really wild, and I don't think a lot of people know that. And normally the person that's kind of giving the target as well doesn't know the target. It's like a double blind thing. So the remote viewer is not supposed to know the target, and the person that's giving the target isn't supposed to know the target, because if you know the target, then your subconscious mind interferes, right, with what you've seen. You're relating that to things that you've seen, whether that be a movie or pictures of the area that you're supposed to be remote viewing. But if you don't know what the target is, then your mind doesn't have anything to make up. So it essentially gets rid of your imagination when you're doing blind experiments and double blind remote viewing.
Right. So they're like in this military environment, but I've actually done a remote view. I've done a lot of work on the smiley face killers. And one chapter of my book is about a remote viewing that took place with 2 remote viewers in Switzerland, covering a case. I think this, I'm just imparting it to you listeners, Ryder, because I think you'll find this interesting, because it kind of ties in totally from another continent, literally looking into a case, an SFK case called Colin Finnerty. Mysteriously disappeared. He was in Western Michigan. He was actually he won the Class B college championships two years ago as a quarterback. So he's a very athletic, talented guy. And he mysteriously was found kind of face down in 2013 it was. And so somebody asked these remote viewers to, and his cell phone had pinged in different places. So things were very mysterious. But these 2 people, just like you said, piece of paper, pen, somebody there, and just asking questions about what happened to Colin Finnerty. And what happened, according to the remote viewer, and you can read this in my book, is that he was abducted and taken places and kind of dry drowned, like water torture. This is very consistent with the smiley face killers, where they mysteriously have water in their lungs, but they're not supposed to water. Something weird happens. And then they covered the pings of the cell phones. So he was taken and then moved and then dumped, and according to the remote viewer. But what's really odd is how consistent that is with what people have surmised what's going on with these smiley face killers, since they're kept taken somewhere and kept for some reason. And it's a group, like the remote viewer said, it's not just one person. It's a group of people doing this. Put him in the back of a trunk, some kind of white van or something weird like that. It's an amazing story. I should just do a show on that alone of Colin Finnerty. I think I might have but just this remote viewing, that's my experience with it. And it's really strange too, because this is a totally sterile environment to Switzerland. Doing something in Michigan is like really consistent with what people kind of deduce. Anyway, that's kind of my shared story, but it is interesting these guys are doing that. You really have these first-person people with pictures and their records. And one of these guys was featured in Many Scary Goats, which kind of like turned this kind of serious. I think they're very serious, but the way the movie in Hollywood presented it was kind of like, let's make fun of them and make them look ridiculous. Would you agree with that?
Yes, and I really liked Ministerial Goats. I thought it was really funny, and but that is a common thing with Hollywood. They'll make fun of the topic and ridicule it like that. I mean, how long did they make fun of the UFO topic? They made fun of the UFO topic for freaking years. Anytime that it was ever brought up, and people would just laugh. You know what I mean? Like, people are like crazy. And the Ministerial Goats was a mixture of two different programs. One of the programs we don't know about, which Lynn Buchanan in the movie surmises that it was called Project Delta because he received an invite in the mail to join Project Delta
Welcome,
whenever he was
Commander.
at Stargate. And it was a combat unit, and he was like kind of wondering, why am I getting, I don't do combat anymore, I'm out of combat, why are they sending me this invite for this program that is a combat unit? But later on, he found out that it was a psychic version of what he was doing but in combat. So there was like a psychic combat thing that they were training soldiers how to use their psychic abilities in combat. But very little information is known about that unit. But Ministerial Goats was kind of a culmination of both of those units combined into one, comedy movie. And according to Lynn, they really did try to kill a goat with their mind, and it apparently happened.
Ended.
Someone was apparently able to do that. Now, where that took place is up for debate. Some people have said that it was in Texas, other people said North Carolina, and then others people say California, but Northern California, Fort Bragg or something like that. But it's not really decided on exactly where that unit was or where that took place at where they killed the goat with their mind.
And that guy, Lynn Buchanan, who you interviewed, is featured in the Ministerial Goats, right? Same kind of ponytail. So, I don't, was he in the book, too? Are you aware of that? I think it's Ronson wrote the book.
Is the book a more serious take on it? I have not read the book.
I don't know. I haven't read it either. I just have seen the author interviewed, and I'm wondering if he featured Buchanan in his book. Maybe the Japanese. Because the reason I asked that is because that Jeff, the character in Ministerial Goats looked like he was based on Lynn Buchanan. Is that right? Is that true?
Yeah, I believe
he has the
that.
same ponytail, right?
I think that's a sergeant of the unit.
Welcome, Commander.
I think that's Jeff Bridges, but the character that's played by George Clooney is supposed to be Lynn Buchanan. His name in the movie is Lynn Cassidy. So the person that plays the version of Lynn in real life is Lynn Cassidy, and I believe that is George Clooney in the movie.
Gotcha. Now I have to go see it.
Please choose your starting
But
location.
then there's another guy who I've seen around too that's mentioned in your films, Ingo Swann. And he was kind of really one of the first remote viewers. Is that right?
Yes, him and Pat Price, and there was a few others that were involved in the early SRI research. But yes, Ingo Swann was one of the first that were studied at SRI, which was funded by the CIA up until Pat Price's death in 1975. And then the CIA cut funding and then reinstated funding later on, and then also the Air Force picked up funding there around 1978. Dale Graff talks about it, that Russell Targ and how Puthoff comes to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and is looking for funding. That's what got Dale Graff interested in. That's how he created that small, kind of off-the-books remote viewing unit at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. But yes, Ingo Swann was one of the first.
And it never got over to, I mean, if that picture in your, I think the picture in your document picture shows about 15, 20 people, so that was about its size, so it's not vast, right?
Well, SRI
Battle
was a
started.
different program. They were more of a research effort arm of the DIA and Army Intelligence. The DIA Army Intelligence Unit is separate from SRI, but it was to study. The CIA gave money to SRI
Low
through
power.
a roundabout different way, and through people, through personal people, and then also just the actual CIA itself was funding research, and that research started in the early 70s, and that was to figure out if psychic abilities are real. But the thing about it is that they knew that it was real because they had MK Ultra sub projects going on long before the SRI was ever in the picture, and then they had been funding it through SRI. So why would you put all this funding into researching it if you didn't believe that it was real? And then in 1995, when they shut down the Stargate unit and said that it doesn't work, so you've been funding it since the early 1970s.
It took you 20 years to figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did the same thing with the Ultra research. They just lied, so we didn't have any results. I think it was a blazing success, but that's what they told the public. It's like when you discover these things, you just don't tell people anything about it, because then you monopolize the information, the intel, the skills, the techniques, and stuff like that. Centralized it, like the centralized intelligence agency.
Yeah, so China and Russia doesn't get a hold of our what we're doing, so we just tell everybody that nothing works.
Nothing works, yeah.
All the
Enemy
while,
units
Russia
spotted.
has had a remote viewing unit for just as long, probably even longer than the United States. They were we actually started our unit because we believed that Russia had a remote viewing unit.
Right. So the Russians, they have you showed this one woman who could do telekinesis or something like that, but they did have that. They had this kind of like, even the Soviets and stuff, cybernetics, and they're very cutting edge and
Low
into
power.
ESP and all this stuff. There's a part of Russian culture that's very strong in that, so they were doing that. I think way back. It started really early. And some of these ESP tests and things like that. Did you ever come across the name Esther Brooks when you were doing your research?
Esther Brooks.
GHS, George Hoban Estabrooks, because he was one of the early ESP testers. He used to do these tests with cards, and back in the 30s. So like this stuff, he wrote a book on ESP. I'll send it to you. But I did a long show about him, and he's kind of one of these early ones, like Erickson, like Cameron, who
Was he connected to Duke University?
possibly he was. I think he was at Cornell. He wasn't at Duke, but he was network. Esther Brooks was a network. He's an interesting figure. I can discuss him in another show, or something. But he did a lot of stuff on mind control. Man is a kind of mechanical animal.
Aircraft
and,
detected.
Was one of the early kind of like before him.
Commander under attack.
Behavioral psychologists, or the people who could make behavioral change.
Well, we discussed in the movie about
Low power.
what was going on in the 30s, and some of the first
Base under
psychic
attack.
testing was done on children from Duke
Unit
University
lost.
by Carl Zender and J.B. Ryan.
And
Which,
it was those cards that they're used, Zender cards, right?
yeah, the telepathy card game, and they would experiment on indigenous school children in Canada and also within the United States as well. And that's what a lot of people remember having, been a part of within the public school gate program.
Air
They remember
transport
those
detected.
flashcards. I remember using the flashcards and having the teacher flip over a flashcard, not showing it to the kid, and asking the kid what shape is on the back of the flashcard. It's a very real thing. You just type in the Zinder cards into Google, and you'll see, Carl Zinder and Dr. J.B. Ryan was responsible for that card game. And I guess back to and then there's other projects as well, such as the Ames Leaf Room. That was because see, a lot of these kids remember in the GATE program, which is separate from the Stargate Remote Viewing Unit. This is a separate thing. They remember a bunch of different things. They remember, hearing test. They remember vision test, taking a strange substance, playing with blocks, playing with, having Rorschach test, playing with strings, and it was a part of this this enhanced learning type of program that they were put into. And they also remember goggles, having to put on goggles, and there are real programs that are not related but under the same type of circumstance, which is the Ames Leaf Room, which was done by this guy named Dr. Ames. He created this room.
Enemy commander destroyed.
Which was funded and contracted by Office of Naval Intelligence, Office of Naval Research, where he would take college students into this room, and it had leaves all over the walls, and he would dose them with LSD and put goggles over their head, and then they would have the worst trip of their life.
Tech
and they would sit there tripping balls, looking through strange goggles at this very small room. It would put them into a psychosis. They would end up in the
unit lost.
ER, right? And then there's other experiments called the Gansfeld experiment, which is
the whole team is wasting energy.
ZFELD, and it's like this thing to induce hallucinations, which they call them hallucinations. We don't know if are they really hallucinations? I don't know if any hallucination is really a hallucination, but that's what the claim is that it induces hallucinations and is to activate your psychic abilities. And you can do it yourself by cutting a ping pong ball in half and taping them to your eyelids, taking a bright red light and shining it on your face. And the people that have done this for an extended period of time, a lot of people can't do it for over like 30 minutes. But this doesn't require drugs. But if you did put drugs into the mix, you would probably it would be way more intense, right? And Dean Radin and Joe Rogan.
Enemy commander destroyed.
He was involved with this experiment as well, and talked about
how you had him on the show. I saw his spot on your documentary. I've interviewed that guy.
Really?
Yeah, Dean Radin is the head of the Noetic Institute.
Oh,
familiar with that?
I have heard of the Noetic Institute.
Yeah, that's the guy who went to. It started by the guy who went to the moon and had kind of life-altering experience and came back and started. The Noetic, Dean Radin's really.
Friendly commander self-destructed.
Yeah, I would actually like to talk with him.
I have his contact. You should throw it and show it. I interviewed him about one of his books. It's one of my earliest interviews, actually.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Units under
Real
attack.
Magic, Ancient Wisdom, Modern Science, and a Guide to the Secret Fire.
Oh wow, yeah, I would definitely like to get in contact with him.
Look up the Noetic Institute. I think it overlaps with some of your research. It was based on the book Varieties of Religious Experience. And Noesis, Noetic Institute. Word for ecstasy.
That's really interesting. I'll definitely have to take a look into that and watch your show with him as well, because it's definitely connected. So I guess when you take into consideration how many kids have been part of these GATE programs, and we talk about in the movie how was for sure going on in the 60s. That's when Walter Bosley was in the unit, was the early 60s. He was part of this, not in the unit, sorry, part of the program. in the 60s in public school. It was called MGM, Mentally Gifted Minors, and he was
Metal
a part of this.
extractor
And
lost.
you know, that went all, and it's still going on to this very day. There are GATE programs that are currently still happening to this very day, and there are people that have reached out to me that have said that their kids are currently in the GATE program, and really weird things happened to them. And their daughter came home and said that a black SUV would pull up to the school every single day and take her and a handful of kids out on field trips. And these aren't just, you know, standard field trips. Sorry, I'm starting to get the beginnings of a little cold here. That's why I'm wiping my nose. These aren't standard field trips that the parents are signing off on. They're a part of this GATE program. She said also within telling her that this SUV would pull up every day and take her and a couple of kids on these field trips. She said that also in the middle of the night, every night, the same kids would come to her house and wake her up in the middle of the night, and they would go out and do like a night school.
So, but they're not necessarily, like you said, Bosley is saying it's MGM, so it may not necessarily be called a GATE program for these kids, right? Could have
Right,
some
but there's different names. People remember it
Enemy
as
commander
TAG,
destroyed.
which is talented and gifted, or there's different names for different programs. Like there's one that from Georgia called Focus, which is
Tech 2 unit
the
detected.
acronym for fostering originality, creativity, understanding, and self-awareness. So basically, what happened is that in the 70s, from the 70s into the 80s, parents found out that the CIA had access to the children's school records, and they couldn't get access. So they would go to the school, and they would go in and be like, "Hey, I would like my access to my child's school records," and they wouldn't give them to them. They said
So it's just a big, the school became a big testing ground in a way, looking for, I mean, there's other things. They may be scoping for psychopathy. You don't even know. Like, but if they're giving you psychological tests and things like that, they may be putting you, this guy's going to be an assassin at 8 years old, or who knows? I don't know.
That's exactly right. You get it. You understand it. And I knew that you would because you're a really good journalist and you put together really good work. But that's exactly right. It's not just one thing. And there are people that want it to just be one thing. But like how any operation works, it's never just one thing. It's multiple things. There's many branches to the tree, you know, and the roots go down far, and the roots also have roots, and those roots are also connected to other roots, right? So it's a multitude of different things that they're looking and testing these children for. So the parents got upset, and they were like, okay, well, we need to have access to our child's school records, and they went to court over it. And there was this bill that was introduced called FERPA, and this is the Parents' Rights and Privacy Act, or the Family Rights and Privacy Act, which gave parents
spotted.
their kids' school records back. But within that, they found out that the reason that they couldn't get their child's school records was because the CIA had them all.
It's just absolutely incredible. Ryder, we are at the 40-minute mark. Do you have time for a few questions?
Yes.
Somebody, a cup of coffee, has thoughts on psychic warriors by David Morehouse. Have you ever heard of that?
Yes, I've had David Morehouse on my show. He was not able to participate in the documentary, but I still consider him a friend.
Metal extractor lost.
Another Ashland says, simple question, where can I watch the movie?
On Amazon Prime, I think we might have a link in the description for easy access for people to get on there on Amazon Prime. But if you don't like Amazon Prime, I also have DVD copies of the movie. If people are into physical media, you can reach out to me at raisedbygiants@outlook.com, and I can send you a physical DVD.
So it's Raised by Giants, all one word, at Outlook.
Yes, sir.
If people want physical DVD. I've got a question from 124. Oh, does your guest know how many of the GATE children are children of military personnel? I don't know.
I would say a lot, because it's not, like I was mentioning,
Unit
it's not just one
received.
thing. They're looking for anybody and everybody. It serves as a recruitment and it can just be standard recruitment to put people in just regular parts of society, right? You can have an agent wherever. You can have an agent at the freaking post office. You don't even know, and that's the point, is that you're not supposed to know. And the people that are a part of it more than likely also don't know, because they've been programmed from a really young age to carry out this thing in the future, and they don't even know, right? But if I were to guess, and that's not to say that everybody in the military or everybody that was a part of the GATE program went into the military or, went into the three-letter organization, but I would surmise that many of them went into military service or into some form of three-letter organization service, because if you get the smartest and brightest people from a really young age, you bring them into the fold, so therefore you use their smarts for your company and for your corporation, so therefore you don't have any competition, you don't have anybody inventing things that are going to revolutionize the way that we operate as a society, because they're working for you.
Friendly commander destroyed.
Right, great point. So it's a way to absorb these things. Like Bosley went through this thing and then ends up as an FBI agent, and things that he said in even your film. I mean, the external world had no idea. They were so integrated into just normal business practices.
And I think that he said
Extractor
in the movie
lost.
that gets me every single time that people should really pay attention to is that he
Enemy
talks about this
commander
part
destroyed.
toward the end of the movie where, you could be working at a job and not know that the job is a deep undercover FBI operation, right? They can disguise it so well that there are front locations out there, and he confirms this because he worked at several of them, one in San Francisco in California and another one at a really popular building in New York City. And nobody working in the building knew that it was an FBI undercover operation. So you could literally be working at, he uses this
Aircraft
example which I
detected.
laugh every single time. I think it's funny. He says, you could be working at a donut shop and not know that it's an undercover FBI operation that's been running for 10 years.
Lizzie asks, when did the GATE program start and how was it different than the Honors Accelerator?
That's a really good question. We talk about in the movie how one of the earliest ones that we can find is in the 60s with
Metal
Walter
extractor
Russell's the
lost.
engineering program in California, but we also talk about toward the end of the movie that it may go back even further than that. It might go back to the 40s, and it may have been a giant military operation. But for more information on that, I won't reveal that whole thing. I want you to go and watch the movie.
Yeah, it's worth your while, guys. Go check it out. Some of these people are in the GATES program or something like that, and that's one of the interesting things about the movie is that people now with the internet, they're starting to compare notes. Much like people who are victims of mind control programs, like they were all atomized or compartmentalized. So they always thought they were alone, or this just happened to me, but they're starting to, their stories are starting to sync up. But Johnny says, I was in the GATES program for a short while. Don't remember. And I was in the ear program in elementary. They gave me ringing in my ears for life. That ended in mental interest. Let's see. Hope says it was called GAT when I was in school. Yeah, there are like special things. They do take like gifted people out. There's no question. Thomas Campbell has a method he promotes. He worked with the Monroe Institute. Who's Thomas Campbell? Answer that with a copy of it.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with Thomas Campbell, but Monroe Institute is definitely connected, and like I mentioned, to the Stargate Remote Reunion, and people have claimed that they remember the Monroe Institute gateway tapes being played in public school, and that's what kind of triggered this whole entire GATE program for a lot of people, was hearing those Monroe Institute gateway tapes online.
Wahhead says psychic discoveries behind Iron Curtain. bunch of there is a strain of Scientology in a lot of these people. So many people like Target, they can get off of Scientology.
Just Target put off that, and it's kind of been put on to other. I mean, Lynn Buchanan is an ordained minister. He goes to church.
He's a Christian.
Yeah.
The whole team is
Rebel
wasting
for Jesus
energy.
Christ. Drank the pink drink. I drank the pink drink, but I don't remember why. Maybe you're not supposed to. There's like themes of amnesia, dissociation. These people too. I don't remember a lot of stuff. Yeah, maybe you're not supposed to. Same people as Esalen. Yeah, they overlap. Institute of Noetic Studies is called Cal, I think. Esale's Central Cal. People are high class, got great jobs. Most, well, that's good.
Yeah, that's another part of it, is that some people become highly successful and other people don't. And the ones that are highly successful don't want to talk about what they went through because it doesn't matter to them. They're in a really good place and they make a lot of money. Like, I believe that Charlie Kirk was starting to figure that out. Charlie Kirk went to an entire
Type 2
GATE
unit
program
ready.
school in Palatine, Illinois, called Creative Children's Academy. Now it's been renamed Quest Academy from 1999, and it's still in operation
Low
to
power.
this very day. Now, this isn't just a class, this is an entire gifted GATE school, a literal gifted and talented school where it's dedicated to all the students. The only students in there are the ones that have been deemed to be gifted and talented. It's still operation today. You can look it up on the website, Quest Academy.
Incredible. Charlie Kirk was something else. Like, I wasn't into him until, didn't know much about him, let's say, until almost a year ago. But Super Roll's book. Case was the name, Rebel for Jesus Christ. My little brother was in it as well. His life's different. Yeah, it doesn't ensure that you'll have a happy or successful life. Joe McConnell was mentioned in this documentary. He gets interviewed a lot. Dan says Pat Price was good and died. Some of these people died. Lizzie says, I was in the gifted program junior and senior high in the mid-60s, early 70s. I don't remember what it was called, but the pressure was intense. A lot of humiliating scenes and crying. Wow. That's consistent with all the stuff that's put people through pressure.
Yeah, Lizzie, when you compare what you've been through and what a lot of people claim to have been through in the GATE programs, and then you look at Hugh and Cameron and what he was doing in Canada with one of the MK Ultra sub-projects at Ravenscraig in Canada, you'll see a lot of different similarities.
Bishop Pike, Episcopal Bishop of San Francisco, monitored ESP testing experiments, PK technique. That's interesting. Because we're in a PK world right now with all these block cameras. It's just a incredible world. But this is part of it, guys. Check it out. Psychic Agent, director's writer. Is there anything you'd like to add or anything I missed before we wrap it up? I think I do have a link in the show notes to the Amazon Prime version.
Yeah, just that there's we talked about 3 different programs here, just like talked about 3 different programs in the movie. The Stargate Remote Viewing DIA Army Intelligence Unit that had less than 20 people in it since its inception. We had the Monroe Institute Gateway Experience, which thousands and
3
thousands
unit
of people
spotted.
have done. You can still do the Monroe Institute Gateway Experience. You can still go to the facility and do that, and to try and induce an out-of-body experience. And then we have the public school GATE program. So these are all separate programs. Now I see where people can get confused and think there have been people that's been confused about the Monroe Institute Gateway Experience and think that they were in the Stargate Remote Viewing Unit for a really long time. But if you pay attention to the movie, the movie's
Your
around an
team
hour and
reached
45
Tech 3.
minutes. If you sit down and really take the time and pay attention to the movie and listen to everything will really start to make a lot of sense. And some people can claim that the GATE program, Gifted and Talented, wasn't what people are saying that it was just some kind of presidential
Friendly
test,
commander
and that everybody
destroyed.
was on these tests, but that's not it. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about kids being pulled out of the classroom every single day, sometimes completely taken to a separate building by a guy that they do not know, that's in a suit that they've never met, and subjected to strange experiments. That is different than a standard president's physical fitness test, or the health department coming to your school and showing you how to wash your hands. I'm talking about something
Metal extractor
completely different
lost.
here, that only selected individuals were. This isn't something that they gather everybody in the gymnasium for and have them, swish something around in their mouth and
Friendly
spit it out
commander
and
destroyed.
put things on your hands and wash your hands, and then you put it under a black light to see where you missed the thing. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking something that's happening every single day. 2 kids being pulled out of the classroom. So I just thought to make that distinction really quickly. But thank you a lot, William, brother. Appreciate it. A great time. Hope everyone really checks out the movie and give us your
Base
feedback.
under attack.
Leave a review and a rating on Amazon, as it helps. Push the
Metal
movie.
extractor lost.
Yeah, it's a great movie. Supremely well researched.
Base under attack.
I learned a lot. And people check it out again. The full title is Psychic Agent Gate Program. And you can get a DVD copy. If you go
Friendly
to
commander
Raised by
destroyed.
Giants at outlook.com. Or send an email to that. And also you can check
Friendly
out Ryder
player
Baptist's
resigned.
podcast, Raised by Giants. And also, I watched it on Prime. It was terrific.
Friendly
job,
player
Rex.
resigned.
This will be that's his third documentary. And then you can check out our other 3 interviews too, as well on William Ramsey Investigates. We had 150 live listeners. Thanks for all the comments and information chat. Really appreciate it. But again, it's Ryder Lee, Psychic Agent, and the Great Gate Program. Thanks so much. Right.